I had a really cool conversation with Newton Chang some time ago. Don't quite remember exactly what it was, but we were talking about it through this lens of like powerlifting and
Mhm.
like self-love and this concept of self-love and like this idea of how did I bring that up? It was I brought up
Uh-huh.
LeBron James. Like, do you only love yourself if you're as good as like where the peak, where the pinnacle is? So if we look at LeBron James as, call him the pinnacle of the NBA because he's now the leading scorer in the NBA to ever exist. Like, so that's 100. Every point below that is less than 100. So if we anchor ourselves of self-worth to that 100, well, then what am I? Well, I'm 0.
Hmm. Yep.
I've scored precisely 0 points in the NBA.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Takes on a different tone when you put it that way, doesn't it? Then if I insert this back into powerlifting, so we're saying if I don't have however many kilos I am off the world record defines my value. That how can you be, it's almost like asking, how could you be happy with yourself and love yourself when you're 12? That's actually a question I've asked myself in the past. How can you think you're good? Or how can you feel that what you've done brings value to the world when you're 17th? And I think you're really proposing the antidote to that, that it's not dependent on those numbers. It's not depending on that ranking list, that it's somehow operating in a complete different direction to the way we've been measuring it.
Yeah. And perspective is everything. So if we shift that perspective and we look at what value that 17-year-old is, what if we measured it or looked at it from a different perspective, as in like, what did that child do for that parent that then
Mm.
up-leveled that
Yep.
parent to up-level the world around them? Now all of a sudden, that 17-year-old who may or may have not accomplished anything uh, is a lot more valuable in that regard.
I like that we've somehow got to self-worth and self-love out of the who you would invite for dinner. Let's see if we can land it there. Make this the final question. Let's talk about self-love, because that's a very non-powerlifting kind of, I know for me, criticism in powerlifting, I really work that skill out and refine that skill a lot. And it's something that Ben Wright and I talk about in training all the time. Ben is under 88 kilo Paralympic bencher over in Paris at the moment. And we talk a lot about the self-criticism that that we've developed through powerlifting, that we can be highly critical of what we're doing. And for me, it used to sort of spill over into not self-hatred, but talking to myself in ways that I would never, ever talk to a friend or to somebody that I was training. Like I'll give you an example. If I was worried about an attempt, especially in training, if I didn't like the way the setup was for a squat, I'd re-rack the bar. I'd take a step back, and literally in my head, I'd be yelling at myself, stopping a pussy. The least loving thing that I could say, I'd say to myself in order to drive myself back onto the bar. And I think doing
Mhm.
that for a long time was incredibly harmful. So I'm not saying powerlifting sets that up, but it's certainly a culture that we like to, what's the word? We encourage it in powerlifting, the critical nature. So what, in your head, what's the steps, what's the challenge then in order to bring self-love back into the training cycle, be able to identify errors, but do it in a very compassionate, empathetic, loving way that edifies ourselves within training and continues to build, rather than using the tear down tactics in order to build something?